Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, is Donald Trump's presidential campaign in danger of coming off the rails, or is it about to get rebooted? Another top advisor quit his team today, and the candidate himself delivered a semi-apology for some of his more wayward comments. But at the same time, he launched a hard-hitting television attack ad, stoking fears of immigration and terrorism. This is not the statue that Donald Trump has in mind when he dreams of high office and history. Moulded by a group of artists who hope that Trump will never be installed in the most powerful office on the planet, they've been spotted in New York, Seattle, and San Francisco. All American cities that are highly unlikely to vote for Trump anyway. Most of the pollsters and pundits have written him off in recent weeks.
In Hillary Clinton's America, the system stays rigged against Americans.
Now Trump is fighting back. There's his first television ad of the general election campaign, a cinematic cocktail of fear and loathing that tweaks all the usual Trump nerves.
Donald Trump's America is secure.
There's the third rejigging of his campaign team in just over 3 months. Paul Manafort on the right, dubious friend of toppled Ukrainian leaders and Russian oligarchs, is out. Kellyanne Conway, veteran Republican pollster, is in. And then there's the most surprising new weapon in Trump's campaign arsenal, never used before: contrition.
Sometimes, in the heat of debate and speaking on a multitude of issues, you don't choose the right words, or you say the wrong thing. I have done that. And believe it or not, I regret it. And I do regret it, particularly where it may have caused personal pain.
The way he showed disrespect towards the brave mother of my son, Captain Humayun Khan, the hero of this country.
When he picked a fight with the family of a fallen and decorated Muslim American soldier, Trump seemed to have embarked on a one-man suicide mission. The polls plummeted, the Trump family panicked, and hence the reversal.
Have you even read the United States Constitution?
This could spell bad news for Hillary Clinton, who needs Trump to be, well, Trump.
I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump has shown us who he is. He can hire and fire anybody he wants from his campaign. They can make him read new words from a teleprompter. But he is still the same man who insults Gold Star families, demeans women, mocks people with disabilities, and thinks he knows more about ISIS than our generals.
And another indication of a Donald makeover. He went off to his first national security briefing this week. In case he wins, he needs to know how it all works, including the nukes. Whether or not this will save his campaign depends, to coin a phrase, on so many known unknowns.
Already facing accusations of being a candidate without a campaign, Donald Trump today lost the man ostensibly in charge of running his bid to be president. Paul Manafort, who became campaign chairman just 2 months ago after the previous incumbent was fired, resigned after the publication of revelations detailing his ties to pro-Russian interests and the former Ukrainian president Viktor Yanukovych. Shortly before coming on air, I spoke to our correspondent Tom Burridge, who is in the Ukrainian capital Kiev, and I asked him first whether, in the absence of a concrete reason for Manafort's resignation, it was likely that those Ukrainian connections had played a significant part.
Yeah, I think the primary reason probably is to do with the US end of things. You know, the Trump campaign nosediving, therefore a shake-up and Paul Manafort goes. But the Ukrainian end of thing hasn't been going away either. Essentially, Paul Manafort's name appears in these documents which I've seen today. It's alleged to be a kind of black book, if you like, a set of unofficial payments. Paul Manafort's name appears 22 times on 19 pages. If you take the figures corresponding to the 22 entries with Paul Manafort's name Add up those figures of the 22 entries, you get a figure of $12.7 million. Now, there's no suggestion or evidence that Paul Manafort has received any of the money listed in these documents. And in a statement earlier in the week, he said that the idea that he received any cash payments is unfounded, silly and nonsensical. But the Anti-Corruption Bureau here in Ukraine and the MP who received these documents and has investigated is certain that they're kosher and that the documents are genuine.
And all this, of course, unfolding against the backdrop of Mr. Trump's relatively warm rhetoric towards Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, some comments that riled people here in Ukraine when Donald Trump, in an interview on a US network, said that from the people he'd spoken to, most people he thought in Crimea were quite happy that Russia had annexed the peninsula. And also, of course, as you say, he suggested on many occasions that President Putin is someone he could do business with. On the one hand, you've got that. On the other hand, his campaign manager until today, Paul Manafort, was a man who came here to Ukraine for nigh on a decade, doing political consultancy work and PR work for the former president, Viktor Yanukovych, the man, of course, who fled this country in 2014 after turning his back on the association agreement with the European Union in favour of a deal with Russia. And then he was, of course, forced from power. On the one hand, you could say that Paul Manafort was doing sort of political consultancy work for a foreign government, and he might say, so what? On the other hand, you can say he was working for a regime and a leader that was corrupt to the core, and he helped keep that leader in power.
And joining us now from New York is Jason Meister, a Trump supporter who works for his New York campaign. Jason, to lose one campaign chief may be considered a misfortune. To lose two, well, it's beginning to look like crass incompetence. If he can't run a campaign, how's your man going to run a country?
Well, I think that that's a good media spin, but that's not really what's happening here. We just came off the best week so far since the convention in Cleveland. Our poll numbers are narrowing, and that's, again, off of registered voters as opposed to the likely voters. I think what the media has missed in this election is the enthusiasm behind Trump supporters and voters. The turnout has been historic. He's the only candidate in history that has as many votes in their primary among
let's just
every
have a look
single
at the polls.
Republican.
I want to be clear that I haven't missed anything. You had, I think, a 2% lead for Clinton in the LA Times this week. Reuters Ipsos had 5%. Economist YouGov had 6%. NBC SurveyMonkey had 9%. Possibly I am missing something. Are you arguing that he's got rid of Manafort because things are going so well?
Things are going well, and at different times
So he's got rid of
during
his campaign chief because things are going well?
Things are going well, and at certain times during campaign call for certain skills. Bannon is an incredible guy. He's gonna do the greatest things that he can do through the home stretch. And I think what everyone's missing here is what the American people are faced with. This campaign is not about what someone says here in a rally or there. This campaign is about the issues that are facing America: the economy, national security, and immigration. Those are the three issues that voters are going to be voting on when it comes for Election Day. And what is Hillary Clinton? She is the poster child of what is wrong with Washington, D.C. And this election is about an outsider.
And this interview is about Donald Trump's presidential campaign. And I'm interested, I'm just sorry to labour the point. I wonder if you could explain why you get rid of your campaign chief when things are going, under your analysis, which is perhaps a little subjective, things are going so well. I mean, can you think of any other example where you get rid of the man in charge when things are going brilliantly?
I think, like I said, during a campaign, certain skills have an impact on the campaign. I think the home stretch, we have the right people in place now. And look, Trump he's stayed on message.
Did you think Manafort was the right person last week?
He's talking about the economy. He's talking about national security. And now we're gonna start to see, and what you're starting to see is what is Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. There's criminal tones to that.
Okay.
I mean,
how well
bribery,
does
pay for play.
How well do you think Mr. Bannon has to do before Mr. Trump gets rid of him? I mean, how high is the bar now? How good does one have to be before getting defenestrated
I think that we're
by
going
the campaign?
I think if we stay on message and we peel the onion on the corruption and the criminality and the pay for play, Americans do not want corruption in Washington, D.C., and we're going to have to get rid of that and change it, and that's what Trump represents.
Okay. Some of the other elements of the Trump campaign that have attracted attention, I'd be interested in as a supporter of his candidacy. Your personal reaction to that? I think you have a daughter. When she's old enough to have a job, if she was sexually harassed at work, would you be comfortable with the suggestion that she should just find another job, as Mr. Trump suggests?
Look, I think what you have to look at is the economy.
No, I want to look at
in this
Mr.
country.
Trump's comments on a presidential campaign and what his supporter thinks about them. It's not an original approach.
This is not what the election is about. The economy. It's about terrorism. It's about national security.
And this conversation is about Donald Trump. How do you feel about his suggestion that victims of sexual harassment should just find new jobs?
No, that's not what this election is about. This election is about the issues, and we need to stay focused on the issues and stay on message.
And the message tonight is things are going so well, we've sacked our campaign chief. Jason Meister, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thanks for having me.